Hello. Let's do together something interesting. Let's do a critical reading of one of Harvard Business Review articles. Let's get started. The article I'm going to be covering today is anyone in your company paying attention to strategic alignment by Jonathan Trevor. I'm excited about the subject of alignment because it is the subject of my research in my doctorate dissertation that I've been working on the doctorate for the past 10 plus years. So let's give it some insights. The article is mainly not only about strategic alignment, it's an alignment in general, because what we know about organizational alignment in general is it's mainly can be grouped into two: vertical alignment and horizontal alignment. So vertical alignment, which is the strategic alignment, in other words, is when you align mainly, or when you focus on aligning your purpose of the organization, which is mission and vision, with the strategy and then the objectives of the company, and you cascade it down. So it's mainly the vertical one is mostly about strategic alignment, and the horizontal alignment is more about the operational aspect. So the title is like to give it a little bit of spices that, yeah, people like to see the word the strategy. So let's begin. The article starts by saying, of course, here, let's read, the best performing companies are often the best aligned. True, there are so many research that prove that there is a correlation between alignment and performance. So companies which are better aligned perform better. What is alignment, etc.? Well, let's continue reading the article. But who in your company is paying attention to how well aligned your strategy is with your organization's purpose and capabilities? So here they start by saying who's from the organization is focusing on aligning the purpose of the company and the capabilities with the strategy. Now, as if the elements of the organization are three. In fact, the organizational design elements are five. So in addition to strategy, purpose, capabilities, there are still more, which is going to be covered in the rest of the article, that talks about the resources of the company, which is they refer to them as the resource architecture, and the management systems, which are the company's policies and the systems in place, of course, including technology systems. Now, in this definition in here, when we speak about resources, you're going to see the organizational structure and so many other things are a part of the resources within the company. Yeah, let's continue. In my research and consultancy with companies, I observe that oftentimes no individual or group is functionally responsible for overseeing the arrangement of their company from end to end. Yeah, of course, when we look at enterprise organizations, there is no specific person who's like chief alignment officer. But normally this responsibility is as a part of responsibility of organizational design, which normally sits within the chief strategy officer of a certain organization, who's responsible to cascade down the strategy of the company, including the improvements. Yeah. Now, multiple different individuals and the groups are responsible for different components of the value chain that make up their company's design. And they are often not as joint as they should be. Yeah, of course. I mean, this is to share that there is some misalignment that is there in organizations. And when people work in, not necessarily work only, but the entire organization function as a set of silos. Steve Jobs talked a lot about Sony suffering from such a problem worldwide, where the entire organization is not aligned, you know, PlayStation with the television business, with the mobile device, you know, part of the organization, the cinema business, etc. So yeah, I mean, aligning companies is very, very hard. So we're gonna see that later in the article. All too often, individual leaders indeed are incentivized to protect and optimize their own domains and find themselves locked in energy sapping internal turf wars rather than working with peers to align and improve across the entire organization. Yeah, I mean, this talks about a big area in business, or in theory in business, called agency theory, which is by default leaders of organizations act for their own interest rather than the interest of the organization. And the idea of looking at them as agents and making sure they are aligned, their personal objectives as leaders of organizations are aligned with the company's organization, is a very big subject within the management aspect. So this is a big topic that normally the board of directors and the chairman of the company, they look hard to make sure that specifically the CEO act for the best interest of the company, not for the best interest of his or her own. So who should be responsible for ensuring your company is as strategically aligned as it can be? The answer should not be the CEO or the chairman or the equivalent. This is here slight disagree. It is the CEO who's responsible for the alignment of the organization, because he or she is the superhuman supposed to be for the organization, not only run the organization, but to continue to improve it, design it, and develop it. So saying that it is not the CEO or the chairman, yes, of course it is not the chairman, because the chairman is mainly responsible for the governance of the organization and the setting up of the targets and the approval, but not the alignment of the organization. So unless by definition we bring a CEO to operate the function, but then if the CEO does not have a say on the design of the company, then how can he or she be responsible for its performance? So this is why it is no brainer to say that the responsible person for an organization from the alignment perspective is the CEO. Now, how to do that? This is another question. The job of aligning the modern corporation is too complex to be added on the slate of someone whose job is to consider hundreds of other things, no matter how talented or powerful they are. Yeah, so if we assume the CEO is too busy to focus on organizational alignment, now it does not take away the responsibility that he or she has. So if they are very much busy, then they are supposed to be responsible for the subject and bring assistance. So this is the idea that today is the delegation of authority and work is very key element in any organization. So the CEO is responsible for alignment, but maybe he will not do it himself. He will have a vision and assign it to some people or some function within the company to drive it forward. Consider for your own company. All right, fine. Practically, who at the enterprise level in your company is responsible for ensuring it is as strategically aligned as possible? Now, this is true, by the way. I mean, if you go to a typical organization, I believe you ask inside, who's responsible for organizational alignment? They may tell you, what is organizational alignment? Even if they understand organizational alignment, they say there is not a specific person. But this subject maybe is being evaluated internally, which is they refer to it as coordination rather than alignment. And they always keep about we should be talking to each other, etc. So there is a lot of talk about alignment, but without people referring to it as basically alignment. So is their focus on behavior consistent with their responsibility, or is it merely an addition to their overriding to their day-to-day job? Is it the responsibility of your company's most senior managers, or should it be more distributed responsibility? How much and how often is time devoted in your company to revisiting its core organizing principles and discussing how to build capabilities for tomorrow's customers versus focusing on today's business? Okay, so many things in here. So now alignment is important, but of course the last two lines here are just like, taking into marketing terminology, so I will not be focusing a lot of attention on in here. Now, how is your company leadership making informed decisions about the arrangement of your company as a complex system of many moving and interconnected parts? Now, this is taken from two theories. One of them is called complexity theory, and another theory called systems theory. So the system theory mainly talks about an organization as a system, as an open system, where studying that system requires not only understanding the different elements of the system, but rather understanding the relationship between the elements of the system. And this is what brings the complexity part in here, which is the relationships between those parts of the system are complex by nature. So this is why you can study the organization from these two perspectives, which is the complexity perspective and the systems perspective. All right, so including organizational capabilities, resources, and management systems. Okay, so let's refer to the organizational alignment as the alignment of the five elements of the organization, which are capabilities, resources, management systems, and strategy, and the vision and mission of the organization, which is called the purpose of the organization. So these are the five. All aim to fulfilling one overarching purpose. What frameworks and information do your leaders require to ask questions, to ask good questions, have better conversations, and make robust strategic and organizational choices? When I say decisions, it's supposed to be not choices. Yeah. So very interesting. Now, when you recruit a leader for an organization, whether the CEO, if you are a board of directors, or management team, it is very hard because you need to think here. They talk about the capabilities model for a leadership. So they are supposed first to know how to run the job. So having the competency to design a company maybe is not something which is they have spent half their life in. So this is why such topic of organizational alignment and design is very key, but it's not something that we recruit leaders. If they have such an experience, it's great. This means they know how to build the model. But if they don't, then they know maybe how to operate the model, and we can mitigate that by maybe having experts come to and help. But again, this does not take away the responsibility that the entire thing is the responsibility of who? The brain of the company, the CEO. And now here you notice the how is the writer talks about what. So a little bit of, I think if they rewrite this paragraph, they can make it better. What capabilities do your enterprise level leaders require to be effective at aligning your company to ensure it is fit with its purpose? Now, of course, organizations, when they align, they don't only fit with their purpose, they fit within each of the five elements that I talked about. Leaders I have worked with who take on the challenge of strategic alignment describe themselves as needing to be multi-everything. So yeah, these are the capabilities of the leaders who are capable of achieving alignment within their organizations. So they are the masters of everything, and outlook and ability. Now, not necessarily outlook, they need to know about what they are doing. So let's not try to make it rocket science. It is not, So a leader of an organization needs to know the mechanisms of setting up and aligning their elements of their organization. And there are, of course, specific methods to help them achieve that. Now, multi-everything in the sense of means, which is multi-level, being capable of enterprise-level thinking from 50,000 feet down. Now, of course, a commercial airliner flies at around 40,000 feet. So this is 50,000. This means the person who's a leader needs to have a high-level overview. A typical leader needs to have a high-level overview, but also a micro level as well when needed. So this is what a lot of, I think, leaders fail to understand, that they say, oh, we never look at the specifics. We always look at the big picture. If you only look at the big picture without being able to look at the smaller picture, then you are not competent enough as a leader. If you are competent enough, you have to have the high-level overview with the ability to zoom in and being able to focus on any level of details that you require in order to achieve your task. After this, which is the multi-level, comes the multidisciplinary, which is fine, which is being T-shaped. This is a model in knowledge management or competencies of certain leaders. possessing generalist and specialist knowledge ranging across the business. Fine. Multinational, of course, you have to have wide experience across the multiple geographies and markets, specifically if you are a part of a multinational organization, it's in effect to reduce bias. Multi-stakeholders, which means, yes, you have to understand your external environment. This is what the writer is saying, understanding the company from multiple perspectives and interests. Yeah, so you have to know the interest of your business partners, including the customers, partners, whatever, the government, So this PESTEL analysis. So if there are no obvious answers to those questions, then there is a good chance that nobody is paying enough attention to strategic alignment. Yeah, this follows up on the first point, which is organizational alignment is a little bit ignored within organizations. There is a lot of talk, I think, on companies about strategy. So everyone talks about strategy, but there is lack of the lack of attempt to align or to base on the strategy on the various 5 or 4 elements of the organization. By the way, when we speak about an organization being 5 elements, this is one framework which is done by the same writer in Harvard. There are additional models of organizations that are even very famous. One example is the 7S model from McKinsey, which defines the organization as 7 elements, not 5 here. But in all, which model an organization can implement depends on the company and its business. So yeah, let's continue. If that's the case, you urgently need to address this gap in leadership, focusing on leadership and capability. Achieving sustainability, a sustainable competitive advantage through superior strategic alignment does not happen by accident. It happens by design. Very, very true, of course. There's no company that's going to align itself unless it's a natural system. Maybe nature by default over thousands of years, they settle and balance through the process of selection. So this is why an organization does not have the luxury of time to realign itself by nature. Maybe it settles over time, by the way, as you can see, very old organizations over time. But what do enterprise leaders do? So now they write to explain about leaders of organization, what they do. So unlike mainstream ideas about personal leadership, which at their core are concerned with mobilizing people, enterprise leadership is concerned with mobilizing the resources of an entire company as a system of many moving and interconnected parts, of which people or human resources are just one element and not even necessarily the most important for developing strategically important organizational capabilities. Wow. So yeah, I mean, this is true. Capabilities within the company are just one part of the entire organizational elements. So enterprise leaders are not people leaders in the traditional sense. They are the system architects of their company long term, and they are in fact both. So of course the enterprise leaders, but here I think they don't mean the business leaders, they mean enterprise leaders. So a leader within an organization should have multiple leadership roles. One of them is an enterprise, another one is people leaders, etc., etc. So here they mean an organization should have enterprise leaders where it's not only about people, but it's about the organization, which is very interesting and very true. All right, the purpose of enterprise, and this is to explain further what is meant by enterprise leadership. So the purpose of enterprise leadership is to make strategic interventions to ensure the most important components of the company's fundamental design, align seamlessly. So this is the people who are missing within certain organizations, which is to make sure that they have what we call strategic or enterprise level leadership. These components include the company's business strategy, which is how the company is trying to win and fulfilling its long term. This is the simplest definition of an organization strategy. All right. So its organizational capabilities. Now here where those are the elements, so strategy, capabilities, and then the capabilities is what it needs to be good at to win. Now they use the term win I don't prefer to use the word win, because the best way to compete is not to compete. So this is why if you have strong competition, try not to compete and win. Try to avoid competing. By this, you will win all the way, and you consume less resources from your company. So it's very interesting philosophy. You see today, this is the same thing happening between those giants like Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and the rest. They are trying to split the pie rather than fight and win the entire pie, which is they will end up getting nothing. So, okay, so when it's resources, of course, the resources of the company, they are referring to the structure, culture, people, and processes are all different types of resources within the organization. And of course, one important resource in the organization is the financial resources. So again, alignment within the perspective of resources means is to allocate the resource of the company properly, or to align the allocation of the resources with the rest of the elements of the organization. And of course, one core element is the strategy of the company. So any decision of investment has to align with the other four, which are the purpose of the company, the strategy of the company, and then building the required capabilities, and of course investing on the management systems, which is the fifth one. So you see how alignment within this perspective. So this is why structure comes first, or strategy. In this perspective, no, structure follows the strategy. And of course here the last one, which is, as we mentioned, the management systems. Now technology is of course a part of the management system. So ERP softwares, whatever, they come as a part of the management systems. And management systems are necessary specifically to implement the right governance and policies and procedures to make sure we have the right level of control and we manage risk. These critical components from a value chain through which companies perform their long-term purpose more or less well. The value chain is only as strong as it is, of course. Principally, enterprise leaders are responsible for. So now defining what enterprise leaders are supposed to be responsible for. Envisioning, of course, defining the vision. So crafting a robust vision of what strategic alignment looks like at their company, and communicating that vision is a meaningful way to others, including investors, staff, business partners, and customers. Of course, having a vision is great, and communicating the vision is even more great than having the vision, and this is very important. The vision outlines the essential principles that will guide the company's detailed strategic planning, organizational design, and operational priorities and performance. So not only the vision and the mission of the organization, and this is what they outline as the purpose of the company. So those who are responsible for the enterprise from the leadership perspective need to be having great visions. Design. Now, following those principles, enterprise leaders should carefully design each component of the company's value chain. Now here, they can design it themselves, or they can use, you can use expertise as well. But as far as they have vision, the vision can help them have what they would like to achieve and the measurement criteria for its success. And then they can delegate the design and the implementation part, and this is very fine. Now, tweaks to the organization design may happen only episodically, what they call, but the leader's concern with the strategic alignment should be constant. Very true. I mean, a lot of people design the company and they keep redesigning it all the time. So it's called build and fix. This is not good at all, specifically when we change the structure for the company, because it touches people and people feel unsafe when you have a lot of changes in the structure. All right, so the design, the management of the company as a complex and adaptive system. When we speak about complex and adaptive system, this is a part of the scientific management theory that looks at the organization as a complex and adaptive. Adaptive system means the system, you remember the systems theory, we talked about it. So adaptive system is a system that is lean, capable to change. Now there is another system that's not adaptive, they call it the kind of bureaucratic model, where we see the organization as a kind of a mechanical machine So in the past, more attention was put on having companies that are bureaucratic or mechanical in nature. But because of the fast changing pace of competition and the economy and the way technology is evolving, companies moved since the past 30 years plus into the adaptive system. But again, there is no rule. You may implement adaptive system or the mechanical or bureaucratic system depending on your company and your requirements. Yeah? Now, the challenge is there. The challenge is there is no one size fits all. Yeah, and this is very true. The statement is coming from a theory in business called contingency theory. So what does contingency theory tells us? That there is not a single best design or a solution for a problem within the context of organizational design. So if you want to design a structure, there is not a kind of a best structure for the organization. No, there can be multiple designs. All of them can enable an organization to achieve what it is looking for. So there is always two philosophies when we handle problems. One is there can be some problems where there is a best solution, and this is away from the contingency model. And there is the model when there are multiple solutions. All right, very interesting. The whole of elements of organizational design follows the contingency model. And this is why saying that there is no one size fits all is another informal way of saying that organizational design follows the contingency model. Yeah. Organization structure and culture, for example, should be as distinctive as the strategies they support and make possible. Yeah, I mean, this is, of course, we're saying that they have to align. This is the entire article is about this, which in turn depend upon the organization's long-term purpose. So long-term purpose of the organization, I don't recommend it to base the structure on long-term. Maybe part of it. So it depends. In some culture within organizations, people are trained that changes in the structure should happen on frequent basis, not very regular, on frequent basis as per the existing strategy of the company. So some companies implement a complete team model where they form teams to work on projects called project-driven companies, and then when the projects are over, they dissolve those teams and they always have resources and capabilities to mobilize. To become more innovative, many companies are attempting to redesign themselves as agile. Now, of course, the word agile is very similar to saying the company follows an open system, right? So open system means agile, simple. Highly connected and open network. So the company functions as a highly connected, and connected means aligned, and open network means the company is open for modifications. So it's not based on the model of mechanical organization. Great. Now, the cost of this is that network-based organizations are complex to manage and hard to control. In my studies, I did not include complexity theory because I don't recommend to see an organization as a complex system. You know, if you study about complexity theory, saying it is very risky or dangerous to say organizations follows a complex model. Because complexity is not that much. I mean, with availability of technologies, whatever the company large is, whatever the size of the company, it's supposed to be able to simplify the way it operates and move it away from being a complex model. Try to make it a simple model, you know, not a complex model. By more and more simplifying it, we may arrive to a certain organizational design philosophy in the future where we may have, you remember the contingency when we say there are multiple? So we may arrive to one model that says this is the best model for the organization. Okay, and that model, of course, can dynamically change, but applying an intelligence. So maybe research in something which is applying artificial intelligence on top of organizational design. This is a very big subject for the future. All right, so let's continue here. So whereas the cost management is the strategic priority, the relatively simple, stable, and you see here stable, and the closed system hierarchy characteristics or the bureaucratic thinking remain in the principle four. So here there are then two philosophies. Nice. Who are the enterprise leaders? The enterprise leader's role often falls to senior executives by default. Of course, I mean, this is the top management. But again, the leader of the entire thing is the CEO. You never delegate the responsibility of the organization from design and alignment perspective to one person, and then you say, oh, the entire organization failed and collapsed because that guy did not do his or her job, and then the CEO is sitting safe. No, it is the organizational design and alignment is the responsibility of the top guy. In some companies, embracing network-based working structure. So network-based working structure, the responsibility is also the domain of dedicated design teams. Yeah, nothing wrong in having a team to work on this. No one approach to enterprise leadership is better than another. This reminds us of something. Yeah, because leadership in general, organizational leadership, follows also the contingency model. There is not model that is best for an organization. There is one or two models, all can work well for an organization. Japanese multinational Ricoh, for example, has invested in building a highly networked internal design function within its 105,000 employees, strong workforce operating across 200 countries, referred to as the Future Business Development Center. Its purpose is to operate at the enterprise level and lead positive business transformations across all business lines. Now, this function, of course, should report to the CEO or the highest management, okay, across all business lines and geographic, in line with the long-term group strategy and the future customer requirements. Built to harness rigorous design thinking capabilities, the diverse team consists of technologies. You notice how? So putting people in technology and the transformation. So you see, when a company talks today about organizational transformation, organizational transformation is nothing but a team that works on organizational design and alignment. Advisors, analysts, researchers, not simply career managers. Okay. Now, of course, the problem is if you appoint those teams and those are away from what managers are doing on day-to-day basis, this is what happens here is these two teams together, they need to be aligned to begin with. The thinking is that to achieve superior strategic alignment in the face of increased business complexity requires harnessing the collective intelligence and energies of powerful team of enterprise leaders across the organization and their extended internal and external support. Nice case study here, speaking about, Ricoh. Fine, it's a little bit of advertisement for Ricoh as well. Now, regardless of for whom it is a responsibility, so here raising again the question of responsibility. Yeah, no, the CEO is clear to us. Enterprise leadership is essential for designing and managing ever more complex, I would say complex, I want to say designing more aligned companies as highly capable systems. So of course, referring to the system theory, okay, because the company is a system, and this is the system theory for you to know. It's coming from biology. So in biology, there was a scientist in the 50s, you can research it on Google, that talks saying studying the human body is not enough to study the separate components of the body, which are the separate organs. So you have to study the interaction of those organs with each other in order to understand the complexity. And now here, because the human body is complex system, truly, it's way more complex than the organization. So this is why actually they took that theory and they applied it on business, what's called the general systems theory, which is seeing an organization as a system as well. So coming back here to the last paragraph, more complex companies, highly capable of systems, fit to meet the demand of their customers and resist the disruptive maneuvering of competitors. Yeah, so it is about the customer demand of our customer, because they keep insisting on this so that people don't forget it. But always a company is supposed to work hard, align itself, have a very solid purpose, develop a very solid strategy, have resources and align them with the purpose of the company and use them the most efficient and effective way. Implement systems for managers to use so that they can have control and governance for the organization. And the last one is as we mentioned, the organizational resources, which are to be aligned the most efficient way. So those are the 5 together. So without it, the risk is that companies flip-flop between different strategies and unconnected organizational designs in endless rounds. Yeah, they keep changing all the time, or conversely, mistakenly maintain the status quo and fall behind competitors in the rapidly changing marketplace. Wow. The best companies are the best aligned, but only when led by design. Yeah, true. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and it gave you some insights into the topic of organizational design and alignment. There are so many writings that talks about organizational alignment is nothing but the design of your company. It is a very important subject that touches on every organization, whether it is small or large. I hope by this I covered a little bit of insights onto the subject of organizational alignment, and wish you all the best. Enjoy it. Put your comments and follow me for additional videos.